evening and welcome to Jocks TV for our third edition of A Moment in Time. As usual, I'm joined by Hugh Lyons for a chat with Nave Martin Gale. This week, we're joined by a man who's been described as a cult hero and has served for the club for the last 35 years, on and off the field. When he jumped for a ball, he's been known to land with a seagull. Ladies and gentlemen, a pleasure to introduce the gentle giant himself, Paul McDonnell. Well, Paul.
Fra, how's it going? That's some. Hi Hugh, how you doing? That's some introduction.
You happy with that?
Well, it must be a slow news week if I'm number 3 following the two real legends, Feile and Martin. So, listen, happy to be part of it. Thanks for asking me. Sure, we'll give it a basher. What else would you be at with lockdown? Nothing else to be at you.
Absolutely. Delighted you agreed to it. And look, you're part of a synonymous family, I suppose, in Monaster by Centennial. So we'll start things off. We'll go right back. I suppose, Paul, you came from a big enough family, a family of 8 there. Your mum and dad raising you. You growing up in the 70s and 80s. What was your memories? I suppose we'll home in on your dad maybe. I think you told me before, or I've definitely heard before, that he was involved with the foundation of the club in 1957. So I know you don't remember, but what's your knowledge of that? Or
no, listen, it was all fond memories, childhood. Like, I'm one of 8 kids, 5 boys and 3 girls, and also sporting family. And I suppose it started, my father and my mother was sporting in Waterford, but my father, he actually played in Tower, believe it or not. He was living over there, and he played in Tower in up till kind of the mid-50s. And then he came across the Monster Boys then in, I say, mid-50s. And he's very much part of the foundation of the club. He's one of the many who helped form the club in 57. Paddy Mullen, another great man, James's father, was part of it, plus many, many more. So yeah, listen, as a kid growing up, obviously I don't remember my father playing, but by all accounts, like, I know he played rugby in the Marist in Dundalk in school, and then he was a big soccer man as well. We've an auntie, or his sister, living in Liverpool at the time, married in Liverpool. But certainly Gaelic was always his first love, and by all accounts, he was a pretty handy. A lot of people, good family friends like Nicky Fitzpatrick would tell you they're good, clean, stylish footballer. I'm not sure if the style rubbed off on the 3 boys or not, his 3 boys, but that's what he's described as, and a very clean footballer. So again, not sure how much that went down the line, but always very well thought of. And when he finished playing, he was very, very heavily involved in the juvenile setup of the club. Like, obviously the juvenile setup wouldn't be as advanced then as it is now, lads, but certainly by all accounts, he was one of the guys, like many more, that would load the car up with 14, 15, 16-year-olds heading to underage games, minor games, and a lot of people speak very fondly of him, of that period of time, which is nice as well, which is nice too.
Yeah, absolutely lovely, great memories. And as you said, he was interested in a few other sports, and he was there or thereabouts with the Loud team, kind of in those early to mid 50s as well, was he?
It was funny. He played pre, obviously 57 was the last All-Ireland Loud have, but he played pre 57 and post 57, but didn't play in 57, unfortunately. Different stories about going to weekend trips to Liverpool or soccer matches and all the rest. It was different. I don't know what the full truth is, to be honest with you, why he didn't play, but bottom line, he wasn't selected in 57, unfortunately. But
Nice.
certainly, yeah, he did play for a number of years for the county, and which is good memory to have too,
Absolutely, especially in an era when they were obviously quite competitive. It shows that he was very talented. That's great. So then yourself, then moving on from that, as I said, you're part of a 8 in the family. So how's things at home in that house? So you had to scrap for your food, Paul, did you?
Mayhem, to be honest with you. but good crack, like, you know what I mean? Good crack. Like, I have 4 kids, and you think it's busy here. Imagine what it was like with 8, But it was good. I say we're always a sporting family, and the sisters, ran a lot as well, and we ran for Dunleer SC too in football. But always good fun, good banter. Put it this, when it came to growing up in our house, you certainly wouldn't get a big head when it comes to sporting ability and all that kind of stuff. Praise was a very rare thing in our house, sporting wise, good crack and banter. But yeah, if you kind of first up best dressed saying certainly applied in our house, that's for sure.
Very good. You'd be brought back down to earth fairly quickly if the head was getting too big, I suppose.
Well, everything from the head getting too big to dress sense to when you have 5 sisters in the same house now, it ain't easy listening to all that now. So it wouldn't be long to clip your wings and bring you back down to earth for sure.
Very good. And you would have went to your school in primary school, is that right?
Yeah, we were. It's funny, over the club over the years, Brad, and Hugh. Like, we were went up to your school, obviously, and my earliest football memories was playing for Tenure School at kind of 10, 11, 12. And we played, Tony Callery was obviously the principal at the time. And he was very good friends with Dick Canny, God rest him, down there from Tenure, who was principal of Mel at the time. So we played an awful lot of friendlies, but, it was every week or every other week against Mel, but also
Right.
field stand, her stand, the dark side, So that was my earliest childhood memory, because at the time, the Jocks, like the juvenile setup, as I say, like nowadays, you have young fellas, kids up there at 4 or 5 years of age. But at the time, it was kind of, 14, 15 is my memory of the Jocks at that stage. But yeah, good. That's where the football started in Tenure School. Outside of kicking the crap out of each other here in the garden at home, like,
Yeah.
then it was Tenure School, like.
Tenure School. Right. Okay. And then after Tenure School, you still, as you said, it was a bit later in them days that you started playing with the club. So you moved into secondary school then.
Yeah, the way it happened was, James and I went to Gormerson College. It was a boarding school at the time. So neither of us actually played. Speaking for myself, and I played little underage within the club from that 12 to 17 or 18 years of age, because we were playing, football and hurling and everything else in Gormerson, but we were only home on a Sunday, so we never played during the week. And certainly, James played minor for the county at the time. So he got out, but very little underage within the club at that stage, to be honest with you. And Nicky, the parents obviously got a bit of sense and said enough of that boarding school crack, and Nicky went to the Ollies there in Drogheda. So he would have played more underage for the club than certainly myself or James would have.
And would you played a bit up in Gormanstown then? I'd say it was
Yeah,
decent
yeah.
standard and fairly competitive up there at that time. Like,
Well, see, you had, I don't know, 500 or 600 kids at the time, and they're from all over the country, like. So yeah, the standard was very, 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 very high and good standard, and tried me hand at hurling up there as well, which was brilliant. So yeah, you had to be on your A game to get into the Gormerson team at the time, and there was all Ireland winners came out of Gormerson at the time as well. So
yeah, is there any names you can give? Was there anyone that was up there at the time that went on
well,
to?
Niall Finnegan from Galway, Galway won an Ireland Galway in '98, if I remember correctly. He
Okay.
played up front, and he was a class act. Like, he would have been probably a couple of years ahead of me, but I would have been watching him on the senior team at the time, and like, he was, what, 17, and I remember him lording the middle of the field, kicking 50s off the ground at the time and all that. For a 17-year-old, I thought he was a god. Like, so certainly in my time, Niall Finnegan was one that springs to mind, but also in the same year as me was Peter Sullivan, who was actually lived from Gormerstown, but he was a day pupil. He literally lived across the road, but he played for the Meath Miners and captained Meath to an All-Ireland medal in 1992 in Croke Park, obviously. I was actually at that game in the Hill watching him. So I'd have been close friends with Peter at the time, and to see him winning an All Ireland with another guy called Cayman Hall, who played on the 40 for Meath on the same team, but he was in Gormston with us as well. So now if anything would be a couple of years ahead, but the two lads certainly I would have been close with. They would have been my year, and certainly they were well deserved winning of that All-Ireland medal at minor for sure.
Very good. And Paul, I spoke about your height slagging you off at the start when I was introducing you, but were you tall the whole way through underage? Like, were you head and shoulders above guys in terms of height underage, or do you remember that, or what?
Yeah, well, I suppose the height comes from my father mainly, but certainly my mother's is tall enough as well. But yeah, it was funny. My birthday is New Year's Eve, and obviously it's a bad birthday when it comes to underage football, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember we played in, I don't know, it could have been under 13 or 14, you know, up there for the Jocks at the time. And somebody was over us, which I won't mention, decided to play me, and I would have been literally a day over age, you know. I remember we beat Tullyallen at the time, and I remember the boy kicking up a fuss like afterwards, you know, and literally me for being a day over age. So I suppose, yeah, the height didn't help.
Probably
trying to
got a bit
hide.
of attention.
Exactly, trying to hide, you know. So yeah, so listen, it was all good memories, you know.
Very good, very good. So then your first memories of seeing the adult Jocks team, I suppose, before you made the breakthrough, like who were the star men, who were the players you remember playing on that team or coming up to the pitch? What's your first memories of up there?
Yeah, I suppose. Listen, I never the 1980 team. I don't remember, but I remember my father telling me about the 1980 team, right? Because like at that stage, like the Barrels, the Healy's, a great neighbour of ours, Paddy Crilly over the road there. He worked in the Farmers for years. He was on that team. James Mullen captained it, and I remember this because my father was telling me about it. And they went 23 or 4 games unbeaten that year, apparently, which is an unheard of record within the county. But to answer your question, my earliest memory was 1988, and intermediate championship win to get him up to senior Jocks.
Yeah.
And I remember being clearly at that game, beating the Malachis. And yeah, listen, like Paddy Sullivan, Martin Morgan was starting out at the time. Corey Healy was in the middle of the field. You know, the Holdcrofts were there. I said, yeah, the Barrels I mentioned as well. You know, Shane Cowley in goals. Like
Yeah.
I remember all them guys very well. I would have went on to play with some of them later on, but really strong, you know, physical team, and you know, well deserved to get up senior at the time in '88, and it's a credit to us that we're still there, like, thank God, and progressing on forward. So that was my earliest, you know, strong memory of '88, and I suppose it gave us, it sowed the seeds of what I would have liked to contribute to the club and to the team later on, you know. I suppose the same as James and Nicholas probably doesn't remember, but certainly James would have been close to, you know, starting, or, you know, a year or two, maybe too early. But that would have been the start of it for me, yeah.
Very good. And like the names you reeled off there, they're all quite big, tall, physical guys. The Holdcrofts, the Healys, even the Winters, them guys, they're all big guys. And then you were kind of coming through, as we spoke about your height and that. Were you saying like that's kind of nearly what inspired you to make that breakthrough, that you'd be well able to, I suppose, play with those guys?
Yeah, well, you know, call a spade a spade. Like unlike the two brothers, James and Nicholas, I never played county, and didn't deserve to play county because it wasn't good enough, right? But the point is, the club was always part of me, and I always felt that I wanted to play the part. Like, coming from, like, your own father's background as well, and heavily involved in the club, it was always there for us. That's all we knew, like, you know.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to be part of it, and, you know, the height and everything else, I suppose, right in the middle of the field, is probably where I played, you know, my best football. And you knew you know your strengths, right? Our job was to get into to corner forwards like you, maybe, and you might score 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 12. You're lucky, you know. But we had to keep feeding you.
Yeah. Well, it was never the bad balls in anyway. That's what I would say.
So moving on then, Paul, when did you make your senior debut for the Jocks?
Senior debut would have been about 20, when I was about 20, Hugh. So 93, 94 is when I remember. That was league. And then championship was 96, I think, yeah, 95, 96 it was, against Curly in RD. At the time, I said, after college, I was working in Donegal. I worked in Donegal for three odd years, yeah, and living in Derry at the time. So, the travel up and back would have been difficult as well. But yeah, around, league about 20 and championship when I was about 22 or so, and it kind of progressed on to then. But like coming into that team, like, it was difficult. You had to earn your place, and we had a really good solid side. Like, unfortunately we didn't make the breakthrough because some of the names I've already mentioned there. And like when you're coming into a team like, Jerry Winters and Mark Morgan were my two idols within the club at the time. Two county men, I remember going to Croke Park to see them play obviously many a time, and to be playing alongside them at club level and learning from them, and them inspire you to progress further was really, it was inspirational for a young fella at the time, and you always know you had to learn from them, but to make the step you had to work really hard to get there, so they were the aspirational guys for me at the time. But there was many more very, very good, strong players, like all the Winters, all great lads, good, strong players that if you're going to battle, you'd want some of them boys on your side, that kind of way.
Yeah, absolutely. And was there anyone else, your kind of same age, Paul, that kind of came through at the same time as yourself in that transition into the senior team?
But probably, like, certainly, I know I'm a few years older than JP, but JP would have come in, I was, I'd say, 20 to 22, so he would have been kind of 17-ish, but he would have come in around the same time. Nicholas would have, for the reasons I've said earlier, he would have come in a couple of years after me. At the time, good friends, Eddie was there, Winnie was there, that was like Paddy Callan was there, was flying at the time. So that was all the group, and then later on, Paul Gaynor came in. Who else? I'm probably doing some people an injustice here. Damien Carroll was playing up front as well. So that was kind of the group that came in, Hugh, at that time,
Yeah. And who would have been over the team or a manager at that stage? Can you remember when you first came in?
There was different guys. One of my first coaches was a guy, was a trainer, actually. Jerry Winters brought him out from Dublin. I remember a guy called Bernard McNally. He would have been my first guy. A bit of a headbanger. To be polite to him, I'm sure he'd probably tell you himself. But good crack and training methods. Like Jimmy, the hill behind Jimmy Barrell's house there, and Nicky Sullivan's field up at Killinlear. That was the training methods. Unlike now, Hugh, you'd me into that kind of stuff, like up and on top of them hills, and a lad at the top of the hill with a flashlight run around me, So and training wise, like we knew different trainers over the years, but Liam Smith would have been there. Declan Smith would have been one, from ex-Leib manager, would have been one of my earliest coaches. Really good, innovative coach, and probably regrets that we didn't progress further, because certainly the club, the off-field structure was starting to build, in my view, at the time. Jack Mulroy, Ollie Smith, Paddy Briscoe, Tony Lynn, all them great guys, great Jocks men. They were starting to bring external coaches in, and external coaches are not always the answer. We know that, but certainly it was new for us at the time. And if you could learn a little bit off every one of them coaches, it was a positive. It would be a positive input to the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And were you playing in 1995 in the semi-final, Paul, or was that during your time you were working up in Donegal?
No, I was away that time. I wasn't on that team. the semi-final, maybe we'll come on to
Pat.
later, but
Yeah.
no, I wasn't on the Pat team. See, at that time, Hugh, in my memory, you know, we were pretty strong, but we weren't strong enough to make the breakthrough, right? The Clans, Stabanin, the Pats, they were the heavy hitters in my memory at the time. They were filtered with loads of county players, really, really strong. So we were more, you know, in that, my memory of the 90s, that end, we were more fighting relegation battles, unfortunately. So, you know, the likes of, who had to be, Kilkerley, Dunleer, Gales, Roach, Joe sometimes, the Brides, that was the kind of group that we were our main battle. We were very competitive with them, but we are probably a step below the three I've mentioned, Hugh, you know, at that stage.
Yeah.
At that stage.
Yeah. And I believe the hills of Donegal wasn't your only bit of travelling done. You went a bit further afield then afterwards.
Ah, sure, listen, when you're young, free and single, you have to kick your heels up every now and again, Hugh, you know. So can't do it nowadays.
No, you went down under, I believe.
Yeah, I went to, when I was working in Donegal at the time, there was myself and two other guys. We did about 3 or 4 weeks on the way to Australia. But yeah, spent 18 months in Australia, and have to say, best time of life. Delighted I went. Sunshine, going to work in a pair of shorts 6 o'clock in the morning on the building sites. Just brilliant times when you come from living in Donegal for 3 years with the rain lashing down the hills up there. When you're going to Sydney and the crack is 90, but we were played Gaelic over there, Hugh, and played for the Michael Cusack's club at the time. A couple of other guys from Louth, guy Derek Kirk from the Clans, Michal Cunningham from Kilkerley, who's still over there, good friend of mine, and his brother Shane does the video and all that.
The videos,
Yeah. So Shane's the sensible one compared to his brother over there, but great memories. And I suppose what I learned over there, Hugh, is probably a little bit unlike my experience here, was that we were playing football over there, and really it was hard stuff. It wasn't the same standard that would have been home, but there was a lot of inter-county players out there as well doing what I was doing, you know, kicking your heels up for a couple of years. And we used to be really competitive matches, but then, you know, you go to the pub afterwards and you have the crack and the banter for, you know, X amount of hours. But we have to say, really positive memories. And at the time, it was very funny. James and a brother-in-law of mine now, Porrick, and a good friend of mine, Paddy Rogers, they came over for a month to me over there. And there was at the time when James came over, there was a league match to be played, and I don't know how public it was at the time, but we got him a jersey at the time, putting that when he was over there for a month, and he played Middlefield with me over there in Sydney. And the following day, we jumped on a bus up the coast for a month. So it was great crack, and very fond memories. Sure.
Jeez, absolutely. And I believe St. Patrick's Day was good to you over there as well.
Yeah, I suppose the bits I remember were brilliant. Yeah, I suppose I went out to Australia free and single, but it wasn't saying coming home, but like that. Yeah, met my wife Maeve over there in Paddy's Day in what is it, 98, and Paddy's Day, Maeve from Derry, and met her over there, and she's a good Gaelic background as well, good GA family up there, brothers play for Derry and so on. So yeah, I suppose the GA was a big interest to her too, so that's what all happened to you.
Made it easier, very good. And geez, that must be some memories now playing with James over there. Going on to go back in your time in Ireland then, what was it like playing with the brothers? Was it enjoyable, or tell me a little bit about what it was like in the house at the time?
Oh sure, listen, the house was a war zone on most days in and around football matches, because I says you wouldn't get a big head, as I said, in our house. But the best way I could describe it, if if things went well, Dad didn't say anything about it, right? He never spoke. But if things didn't go so well for any of us, you'd hear about it. But you hear about it because Dad would be giving it out to us, and my mother would be telling my father to stop, and then the sister would be having to go as well, or the sister would be up the games looking for the talent off the field as opposed to on the field. So it was plenty of banter and slagging, and it was probably hardly ever a game that the three of us played well. Do you know what I mean? So there was always a bit of noise somewhere along the line. But certainly, it was great playing with James at the time. That James, I say the two boys played inter-county. I didn't, but James, good man to have around the middle of the field, of course. And I like to, like as I said earlier on, some of my best football was played in the middle of the field with James, most of it. And then when the young fella, the chosen one, started up front, the young boy, when he came along, Nicholas. So most of our time was spent in watching out for him, because Nicholas sometimes he'd be talking instead of listening, Hugh, if you know what I mean. So we'd have to go in and rescue him an odd time, you know. So there was a few games in particular I remember that the two big brothers had to help out putting it out.
Right. Okay. Very good.
Like
Very good.
Kane and Undertaker in the wrestling.
No, we were all very clean. There's no cards thrown around at that stage for.
No, they weren't invented.
But I suppose that competitiveness probably helped you to drive on. And then, talk to me a little bit about, into the early 2000s, who were kind of some of the rivals then at the time, your strong past Cullen team?
Yeah, again, I thought in my time that our kind of team very much matured from kind of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We were strong. We were very competitive in my view, and strong. Barry in goals, great keeper like Nedger at full back, and you'd Winnie and a young Mick Fanning in the mid-noughties came up, and I suppose myself and James around the middle was there, and then you'd JP and Nicky up front, and the young fella there beside you, Hugh, on the screen, he was there as well, with his white boots, corner forward coming out with a pair of white boots. Sure, he's a cornerback stream. So we were relatively strong and competitive at the time, but Cullen would have been strong. Blues were very strong at the time. So Sabannon had kind of slipped back a wee bit. Likewise, the Clans, Cooley slipped back. So they would have been the strongest. And Lear were strong at the time as well. So my coming into the noughties, and certainly in 05 was probably personally I probably played my best football around them kind of years. And the championship, I thought we had a really good experienced team at that stage, Hugh. And I know we were beaten in the semi-final of the championship by Cullen by 2 or 3 points. And for me, that's the one that got away. That still haunts me to this day, because they got a couple of goals that shouldn't have happened. Fair play, and they're a great team, and I have the height of respect for them. But when you let them score 2 goals as opposed to them scoring 2 goals, it kind of hurts me. And certainly the one that got away, that's for sure. That game, because I remember the time actually our granny died that night, or the night before, that morning of the game. So emotions were high, and then to be beaten so close when we thought we could progress further. Because I don't know if you probably remember, Fran, the quarter final. We played the Brides in the quarter final, and there's probably there's 3 memories from that game in the quarter final. First one was Nicky got the winner, right, which was great. Second one was I scored a point with my left foot, which is a collector's item. And my coaching, me being coach underage, I was always taught my left foot, Hugh, was a bit like Fra's right foot. Okay, it was used for standing on only, right. So that was my second memory of that game, and the third memory was after the game. LMFM Colin Cargill was interviewing one of the lads after the game. Remember before the old dressing room, in front of the old dressing room.
Yeah.
And a young fella called Fran McCullough, I'll never forget, was when the interview was being done behind it, Colin Corrigan, he started singing, "We're going to win Joe Ward, we're going to win Joe Ward," you know. So not only did we believe it, Hugh, but also half of the county who had to be listening to LMF and also thought so. We were well marked, as if our intentions weren't planned at that stage for 05. But certainly, yeah, 05 is the one that got away. Still, out of, I don't know, but do you think, Fra, but out of all the games, obviously, well, you've been successful because you've won stuff after, I didn't. But certainly, championship-wise, at that stage, we had a really good, solid team. And, you know, but anyway, it's history.
Yeah, no, it's a very fair point out of it, 05. I still think it's the one that got away. I really think we were 50-50 with Cullen that year, and not saying we would have went on and won the final or whatever, but I think they beat the Blues or something like that in the final. But
It did, yeah.
yeah, it was really like a kick of a ball. I don't like to bring it up, but Nick had a great chance in the last few minutes in that game to score a goal, and it just didn't happen. But that was the fine margins. Ball broke on the end line, the other end.
Yeah.
And I think Adrian Reid came on to it and stuck it in the back of the net, and they were the really little fine margins. And I actually remember that quarter final. I don't remember saying that now in LMF. I would say that's a stretch now. But I remember
you weren't saying it. You were singing it, Fra. You weren't saying it.
I remember flicking it across, and Nicky came in and palmed it into the empty net to get the winner in that. And there was a brilliant atmosphere amongst the lads in that year. As I remember, Mickey McQuillan was over us and brought us through. And it was one of the best memories I have in a dressing room after, because it was really you know, all togetherness, great crack, great atmosphere, I have to say. And they were the moments, I suppose, you live for, isn't that right?
Oh yeah, and like, you know, I don't have, it won't take us long to talk about what I've won for the Jocks, right? That could be a short conversation. But the memories you have, Fra, like that, the memories, okay, we didn't win it, but the memories and the friends you meet along the way and the banter in the dressing room, that's never easy. You can't take that away, like, you know. So it comes back to team sport and team ethic. Like, I would encourage, we were always encouraged at home, team sport is where it's at. And certainly my own kids, I would encourage them the same. So yeah, brilliant memories.
Yeah, and as I said, it wasn't like just the football. Like, you know, there was plenty of other things kind of within the club, but to get that social aspect of it, and there was a couple of weekends away, there was a couple of trips abroad, there was some great memories, some great friends.
But there was, like, you know, and talk about trips abroad, like we did in I think it was 05 as well. It must be the start of 05. We were in Salou, went to 93. Never forget it. 93 of us went to Salou at the time, partners and wives and boyfriends, girlfriends, the whole lot. And the crack was 90, like, because one of the lads had a connection. I won't say who, had a connection with a Ryanair employee, and organised, you know, good cheap flights. And we're over there for 3 or 4 days, Hugh. And the crack and the banter was just absolutely mighty. So that's one of them. And then the trips to Killarney. You know, I was a young nipper starting out, and, you know, heading out to Killarney, and, you know, all the great names, some I've mentioned, some I haven't mentioned, you know, 2 or 3 times I was down there with the guys, were absolutely brilliant. So, you know, not only on the pitch was great and enjoyable and great friends made, but off the pitch where you get to meet and socialise with so many non-playing members and extended families and extended colleagues and so on, which is which you still hold to this day, like, you know. So that's the club. That's what the club's all about.
And in another time, you met some of these people, the non-playing people that we talk about, but people within the parish, within the community. Was Strictly in 2013? They were, what was your nickname there?
It doesn't matter, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But
I know you had a fine head of hair that night.
Yeah, Strictly was brilliant, like, because there was, I think was that 2013, I think it was. Yeah. And the biggest surprise was that 1,000 people paid in to see a clown like me trying to dance, right? And, you know, the crack and the banter, because we trained hard for 8 weeks, like, you know. It was hard enough to train my left foot in the field, but to train on the dance floor was even tougher again. So, like, we trained for 3 or 4 nights a week for 8 weeks, and, you know, Teresa Whelan, who's my dance partner, like, she's a heart of gold. She stuck with me, But the crack, and again, people that weren't players at the time, they weren't involved in coaching or directly related to people playing. There was non-committee, non-members, not non-members, but people I wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
They were all on stage with us. But the crack and the banter we had, and to get 1,000 people, to the fairways in the dock that night, and it's credit to, who we got.
Mickey Smith was chairman at the time, wasn't he? Yeah.
James Howell was heavily involved as well, and all great men of those, because we were on stage and people probably remember us having the crack and the banter, but there was a team of people behind us, as Fra, who organised it all and did all the fundraising and everything else. So that's the unseen, thankless work that goes on behind our club, but I suppose every other club in the country as well.
And just to bring it back a second, just to finish up the playing days, Poggy, just to go back to 05 and then 06, like you're knocking on the door, you're betting a quarter final after replay with the Blues. I think the Joes win the championship that year in 06. What would you put it down to that team? Because, I know certainly my memories of that team would have been on paper. You had a fantastic balance of youth. You have the likes of Mick Fannin, Paddy Halligan, Posy McDonough, Mark McCormick and Fra, and then kind of the elder statesmen, the few lads that were there in 98, the Nedzers and things like that. Why do you, and Barry Morton and JP obviously and Nicky, why do you think that didn't get over the line in that time?
I don't know, people say you make your own luck, Hugh. We were at the time, certainly we were as committed as, in my view, anybody in the county. We had a really strong panel, we were a really mature team, and we knew time was running out for a few of us. Those 3 or 4 of us that you mentioned that were nearly done, but we were playing well, but we were another year or two we were done. So, it's a bit of luck, because we had, yourself, Fra, we had Nicky, we had JP, and the other Podsies and all these guys, Mark and all the lads, and young Paddy Halligan. And so we had scoring ability, and the defenders were strong as well. So probably a bit of luck at the time. It's hard to put your finger on it, because I believe we trained as hard as anybody else. We were committed, but we just didn't get, them 2 goals in 05 again. Sorry to go back about it, but one hit the bloody post, Fra.
Yeah.
You remember that? Hit the post and you down, stuck in the net, and you know what I mean? Things like that, that's luck, that's bad luck. But I'm not whinging or crying about it. Good luck to Cullen. They deserve to win. Fair play to them. But I don't have an answer for it, because it's very, very hard to put your finger on it. It just didn't happen, because we were. I was very conscious of, throughout my career and playing career as well, Hugh, that I wanted to be part of the team that kept us senior as well. All them relegation battles I spoke about. And we were relegation final. We were in loads of finals, but they were relegation finals. There was no medal at the end of the day. But I was very conscious at the time, and I mightn't have said it, but I didn't want to be part of a Jocks team that brought us down, because so much work and hard effort to get us up to 88 and keep us there. And at the time, I was conscious that there's a lot of clubs around us who were going up and down between intermediate and senior, and they flags it every year or two, winning intermediates, but they're way down the following year. So it wasn't necessarily, if you went down, you got back up again. So that was my memory of it, and I can't put my finger on why we didn't make the breakthrough, but probably luck was probably the biggest. The lack of luck maybe was the biggest part of it, because in 06, we did win. The only senior medal I won was a senior B, Fra, wasn't it? Was it 06?
Yeah, 06, I think it was 1B league, yeah.
Yeah, we beat the O'Mahony's up here in our place here in the final. Bad night, but I remember that well, because 2 things. It was the first and only senior medal I won, but secondly, our father wasn't that well at the time, and the 3 of us were playing, and there's a good picture up in my mother's house now with the 3 of us and Dad in the cup. So good memories to have that, because that was 06. And I finished up at 07, 08. Kids came along at that stage, and so that was me.
And you were saying there, I suppose, particularly for the younger viewers, that are kind of only used to minor success, senior success. Like, it's important to remember that there was a lot of years, certainly, that I can remember relegation finals, as you say, were the thing, and in a funny sort of way, they often were the best performances of the year when the pressure seemed to be really on, right, to the big occasion.
We always did it, Hugh, and I remember, often the time relegation battles we played at the end of the year. It could be October, November time on a wet Sunday afternoon or morning or whatever. And we always come up trumps. Like, we always did it when the pressure was on. But unfortunately, if we had did it early on in the year, we wouldn't have been in the final. But yeah, so our younger viewers, and I tell my kids here, they really need to enjoy the period of success now. Now, obviously, we all believe there's more in this team, in this panel, which is brilliant, and let's hope to God they continue. It's a great run to have. But it wasn't always that way. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't always that way. Like, the first time I remember putting the flags up in Munster Boys was, what, 3 years ago, Fra?
The league final of 17, probably, yeah.
17. That was our first memory of we put flags up here at the house and the road, and the kids were all excited and so on, and flags up around the club and all that. And I think we've done it every year since. Yeah. But, that was unheard of. Like, we had to buy flags 3 years ago. We never had flags. So the point I'm trying to make is these are great times, not to be taken for granted, but, obviously you have to work because everybody else, you're up here, people are trying to catch you. You have to work every so much harder to continue the progression that we've been on over the last number of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And that legacy and fair play, Paul. I think, like yourself, James, Barry Morton, Neds, I think he's all retired 08, I have here. Would that sound about right?
Yeah, at the time in 08, I think personally I'd two kids, Darren End at the time and Rose is on the way. So it was, just life catches up with you, too much going on. And but listen, I was happy to hang the boots up at that stage. I had enough done mid-30s and let somebody else come along and have a go. I admire people that progress on into the late 30s into 40s. It's not easy, and it shows the commitment and desire to keep playing for the jersey. But listen, at that stage, I was done, and once I stopped playing, I started my next journey coaching-wise, which I'm still doing and really enjoying it today.
So you finish up playing. A couple of years later, you become children's officer. Can you tell us, as particularly for people that mightn't be aware that it's such an important role within the club, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, probably. I was children's officer when I finished playing. Hugh, I got involved in the committees and so on, and children's officer within the club for about 5 years. And when I was playing, I don't think the role of children's officer existed. But for all the reasons we know, in the big bad world out there, it's an important role within any club at the minute now, because ultimately, kids have to be safe and parents have to feel that the club and the environment you're creating within the club is a safe atmosphere for the kids to come and enjoy sport. So it's an important role. And listen, I'm not saying I had a lot to do. Thankfully, we're in a great club, great community, but things do crop up every now and again. You have to deal with them. But I've handed over the baton to young Paddy Sullivan there, and listen, he'll bring it on to a new level. Great guy, that's his field of expertise. But yeah, the child welfare officer role, it got me experience of other parts of the club that I wouldn't have had exposure to before at all, and other families and other parts of the community, if you like. And it's another example of all the untold work that goes on, because when you're playing, you're in the little bubble and you don't see the committee meetings or the fundraising meetings or the back work that's been done. So that's why I wanted to give something back and got involved at that stage.
Absolutely, yeah, and fair play, did a fantastic job, and I know from talking to Paddy the great foundations he put in place there. Tell me a little bit about coaching the underage. You had a couple of trips down to the Feile. Tell me about them. The Feile was a brilliant experience, Hugh.
I never been involved in Feile at all before, and our club had never been involved that I'm aware of. And certainly I've been lucky enough to be the eldest lad, Darry, 17 now, but between himself and Enda, they played in Cork. We had one Feile trip in Cork. So it's an under 14 national competition that you had to qualify for. So the first year my experience was low in Cork for 3 or 4 days. The second one was in Westmeath, and there was Common Border for 3 or 4 days 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And then 3 years ago, I think it was, we hosted our Feile up here. It was in Louth, Meath and Down, and we were lucky enough to be a host club. So when you're a host club, you automatically got into it. So, I went from not knowing anything but Feile at all to having 3 years in a row experience of it, which was brilliant. So it shows you the strength of the GA community that's out there, Hugh, and the organisation on the background. And certainly, when it comes to Feile, my fond and abiding memory of Feile is that brilliant Sunday afternoon up in the Jocks pitch, you might remember, when we hosted the under-14 finals within our division. And we didn't qualify on the day for that. We were beaten in the Geraldine, the day before. But that's not the point. The sun is shining down. There must have been 50 or 60 people in red luminous vests, Jocks staff, if you like, going around at the time. There was 20 or 30 buses parked up. We never thought we'd get to see them anywhere. How do we fit these all in? The car park was going. A bit of pressure came on at some stage when the toilets and the water capacity wasn't built for that quantity of people on a sunny Sunday afternoon. So there was a bit of pressure for a few hours there, but again, a great experience, great memories, and I certainly would encourage anybody coming behind me under 14, if they get a sniff of qualifying for an under 14 Feile competition, go full 100%. Try to get into it, because it's an experience. The kids, and it's not, I obviously remember fondly, but it's the kids. It's back to the kids, the families, spending 3 or 4 days in the west of Ireland or the south of Ireland, and sightseeing, and it's that whole community bond that you wouldn't get if you didn't go to a Feile competition. So yeah, great memories and of Feile for sure.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, and it was very, very memorable, and fair play to everyone involved with the organisation. And again, that didn't happen by chance. So then you're involved with in the senior committee. Would you say that's kind of, do you feel a sense of, with your dad being involved kind of in the formation of the club, would you feel that that's something that's important to you? You mentioned legacy earlier on with making sure in your playing days that you wanted to leave the jersey in a better position. Is that something that plays an important role for you involved in committees?
It is, Hugh, because it's kind of nice when up at the club there in meetings and all that, there's pictures around the wall of families, fathers, mothers, everything else, which is great, because all we're doing here is giving something back. Do you know what I mean? The club was brilliant to me, brilliant to my family. The 2 sisters, Linda and Michelle, are part of the health wellbeing committee within the club, which wasn't there 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So the point is, like, James and Nicholas are involved in coaching as well, same as myself. So we're giving something back to the club, which has been very, very generous and very, very good to us as a family. So it's not onerous work. If you didn't enjoy it, you wouldn't do it. So certainly I enjoy it, and it gives something back. And when I finished playing, it's the kids were, starting out at 4 or 5 years of age. So I got involved straight away with coaching them and the committee. So the committees will keep going, but it's back to the work that goes on behind the scenes again, Hugh, that people don't see. All these fundraisers, we're looking to build an Astro pitch, a kicking wall, the stand up there and so on. And there's a lot of great support by Dunning's over the years with grounds and everything else, and sponsorship. So that all doesn't go unnoticed, but there's a field of people in the background that does all that great work. We've Goyer there at the minute, and Graham doing some good strong work in the background, and on all the names I've already mentioned, Neil Cooney and so on. So it's great, and part of that committee again, there's a lot of new blood coming into the club, and I certainly welcome all that new blood, and certainly if you look at the ladies committee, the well-being committee, we're all one club, one jersey. So it's back to the community ethic that we're trying to build and expand and make sure the legacy continues for many years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. It's brilliant stuff.
So then, Paul, everyone we get on, we kind of talk about where we arrive finally at the Holy Grail of 2020, and strange year that it was, but a fantastic year for the club when we captured our first Joe Award. So obviously you were delighted to be there that day to see that happen. And did you ever think it'd come?
It was fabulous, Fra, because did I think? Yeah, I knew it would come. I was hoping it would come when we were there.
Yeah,
but
tell me about it.
so be it. But no, listen, the breadth of talent there, and the coaching from you and all the guys, and the current setup is second to none. And that group of talented players that's there at the moment, it had to come for them, and I was delighted. But you make your own luck too. The first championship final listen, we blew it, and no other way of saying it. The second final we didn't blow, we just didn't show up. So I was more disappointed the first day rather than the second final, if you like. And the third day, it was just fabulous. It was unfortunate COVID hit that more people couldn't have been there to celebrate, because that sense of pride and success that certainly I felt on the day was unheard of, was unreal, because the excitement. Now, there was only 100 people there on the day, based on the tickets, of course. And it was a lot of fun and good crack and all the rest in the build up to that. But it was brilliant. It was brilliant memories, and I certainly was thinking about people that weren't there on the day, young and old, that weren't there to experience that, because it's for them that you were doing for as well. So it was great, and there's more in that team. We all know that, but it's like everything. There's a chasing pack now. We're not the new kids in the block anymore. There's people chasing right behind us, so we need our up again to continue to drive on. But the scoring power, scores win games. Yes, needed defensive midfielders, but the scoring power we have at the moment, we like to think we're a match for anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And just touching on that current crop of players, and looking at your own position back in the day, I know Evan Whelan kind of came in last year, and he's a player you admire.
Yeah, listen, Evan is probably like me, and I won't speak for James, maybe I will. We were the old style midfielders, right? But there's no way, in my view, we would stick with Evan Whelan these days. He's up and down that field March Hare, and new style midfielder, full of running, young legs, and fabulous year last year. Delighted for him, the brother Mark there as well in defence. But Evan in particular, you have to keep integrating young blood. It's like every winning manager. If you win, who's coming next? Don't stick with the same. Bring one or two new heads in all the time. Certainly, he's one to watch. Well, he's not one to watch. He's established, if you like, now. But there's another young fella there, Tiger Bryan from Tenure. I have to give the Tenure lads a mention, Brad. There's not too many of us now. There's only a few of us.
Absolutely, yeah. Keep them coming, yeah.
Young Tiger Bryan there, he's in 17 there in the minor squad at the moment. So he's certainly one to watch, and he would have been, he came on in the minor final 2 years ago.
Okay.
So he would have been lucky. I was lucky enough. Dara was involved on that minor final as well, which is brilliant. And Tiger came on the same day. So certainly he's one to watch, because I would have been involved in coaching him, starting out. So delighted for him. He's one to watch for sure. And then I'm involved in the 12 and the 15s myself. But there's a young fella there. A Jocks team wouldn't be the same without a Winters on it somewhere along the line. So there's a young Eric Winters there, and he's lovely chap, big, strong, athletic build, loads of football in him, and from good stock on both sides, with a Howell Winters combination there. So they'd be the ones to watch for me.
Absolutely, and you spoke about us not turning up in the final 2 years ago, but before that game, the Miners finally won the championship as well. Sorry, for the second time in a number of years, but your lad Darrow was on the team that day, and what a fine left foot he has. It's certainly not for standing on anyway.
He didn't get it from me.
He's definitely got that
Hold
one.
on,
Harry,
hold on, Poggy. I think you got a famous left foot score that you got a famous nickname out of. Am I right in saying that, bro?
Yeah, it was Bexley was nicknamed after one of them. I don't know who brought that one in. It could have been young Paul McDonnell at the time.
Yeah.
He was trying to strike up a relationship maybe with the elder men. He was trying to butter them up, and I think that's how Bex came about.
It worked. It did butter me up. But it's no, Dara had a great year. Like he's 15 at the time. Came in minor and delighted from obviously very proud that he obviously won the championship because at 15 he was only starting out. He won more at that age than I ever won. So which was great and delighted for him. And there's 3 more kids coming after him. So hopefully there'll be more within it. You feel for that current group at the minute, and every kid, given COVID and so on, that the lack of football and the lack of training and the lack of bonding, team bonding and so on. It's tough, but to answer your question, yes, the minor win that year was fabulous and certainly a proud moment for sure.
Absolutely, very good. And just rounding things up then over your 30 odd years, I suppose, of watching, playing, and then since you've retired, your favourite players to watch, and then who would have been your favourite all-time Jocks player, I suppose?
Certainly, I'll say a favourite player to watch outside of the Jocks, outside of the club. The favourite player to watch, because I marked him a few times, and I was normally watching him racing past me, was Paddy Keenan, and he was streets ahead. Like I don't know the chap, but lovely guy by all accounts, and loads of ability. Talking about modern midfielder, left foot, right foot, athletic, strong. He had everything. He had everything for sure, and well deserved of our first and only All-Star in 10. And speaking of 10, for me, and I hope this not been recorded because he'll put a bigger head on him. JP was the man. Listen, for me, obviously I mentioned Jerry and Martin, but for me, JP, privileged to play with him, skillful. Could think a couple of seconds ahead of everybody else, for sure, and streets, in my view, streets ahead of anybody. And when I mentioned 10, one of the big regrets for me, I was obviously in the Canal End in 2010, announced the final, and that goal that was scored by JP, when he scored that goal, that for me was one of the best goals that was scored in Cope Park. But unfortunately, what happened afterwards, there's no chat about it. It's not seen at all, and like the kids have to look it up on YouTube to see it. And but if we had have won, did we win, did we lose, whatever, if that hadn't happened, certainly JP's goal would have been talked about a lot more than it's talked about today, in my view. So yeah, for sure. Internally within the Jocks, JP, and externally Paddy Keenan is the best I've seen.
Very good, Paul. That was very comprehensive overview, I suppose, going right back. Bit of crack as well. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Listen, when you rang me up first about it, all I could hear was the 2 legends, Martin and Paddy. Where's this phone call going?
Oh, I thought you meant me and Hugh.
Easy. So I thought you ran out of phone numbers on your phone. You ring McDonnell here. But I enjoyed it. It's good to reminisce, and the club's been good to me, and please God, the next generations to come. It'll be good to McDonald's for many a year to come yet.
No bother. Well, listen, thanks very much, Paul. Thanks a million, Hugh, for joining us, and hopefully we'll be back again in the near, not too distant future. Thanks a million. Bye-bye.